Shalom, shalom, all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Bahasham, Makah, Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of the Great Stone, and salutations to all you sincere kin. Once again, it's your brother Abawan. We're back again with another video. And I would be lying if I said I wasn't excited because after all these years, finally some engagement on my channel. And what I have is a comment, right, 21 hours ago from Good Change, where he asked, "Are Nigerians Israelites?" And basically, you have, you know, people inquiring now concerning the scattered tribes of the Hebrew Israelites, not just, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians in Babylon the Great, but also the scattered brethren that have started to wake up and to preach this gospel in other parts of the world. And of course, I replied, yes, that we are, okay, because as we already know and we profess in this truth that majority of the people here in Nigeria and really in the west coast of Africa as a whole are Israelites, okay, specifically of the southern kingdom, that is Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. And he came back with another reply. Could you send me a video or scripture supporting it? I thought you were Hamites. And as usual, I'm going to do a video actually addressing this because the whole doctrine of, oh, well, the Africans are Hamites is completely off. But you get that doctrine from the ISUPK, and that's what they teach, that all Africans, so basically the entire continent of Africa, is filled only with Hamites, which is going completely off according to the scriptures, because as we know in the scriptures, let me get that precept. And the scriptures clearly say that the Most High Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai will scatter our people, the Israelites, to the four corners of the earth. Okay, now our people will be scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, or throughout the whole earth. Let me see if I can find that precept. You have to bear it. I'm trying to figure out whether it's in the book of. Oh, here it is. Here it is. This is the book of Deuteronomy 28, verse 64. I wanted to confirm if it was in the courses first, and it was. So this is the book of Deuteronomy 28, verse 64. And Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. So the Most High Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua has scattered our people all throughout the four corners of the earth. And what you need to understand is that there is no place on this planet where there are human beings that they are not Israelites, okay? So you can't just look at the whole group of people, look at the whole continent, no less like Africa, and say, oh, well, everybody in there are Hamites, everybody in there are heathen. There's no Jake there, which is exactly what the IUIC says. Actually, not the IUIC, the ISUPK says, okay? Because what you have to understand is that our people are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, and all groups, all races, all nations, all people have Israelites among them. Even the small hearts that will say, oh, well, they are imposters, they are the fake Jews, there are still some true Israelites among the small hearts as well, okay? And ultimately, I'll touch on that as well, but let me just say this at the beginning of the video. Ultimately, it is not by appearance. Okay, being an Israelite is not, you look like a so-called Negro, Latino, or Native American Indian, or because you were, because you are, you are carried in those slave ships to America, Babylon the Great. That's not what makes you an Israelite. What makes you an Israelite is the spirit that is in you. Do you have the spirit of an Israelite? And though your outward appearance may be different, spiritually you are part of the 12 tribes of Israel, right? One of the sons of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So now what I want to do is I want to go and get this, because this individual right here, right, is a good change. Of course, I'm not going to, really ask the question in sincerity, right? Now he wants to know how the Nigerians are Israelites, right? How the Nigerians are Israelites. Well, I'm not just saying that only Nigerians are Israelites, but I'm also talking about West Africans as a whole, and I'm also talking about the scattered brethren, okay, our brothers that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth that may look like the heathen, okay, because what you have to understand is that it's not just West Africans, it's not just Nigerians, it's all people, all nations, okay. So any part of the world, in China you have Jake, in Japan you have Israelites, in New Zealand you have Israelites, among the Samoans you see the Rock. There's no denying that the Rock is an Israelite. Among Japhet you have Jake, okay. Among Esau, Edom, these Europeans, right? You have Israelites among them as well, because our people have been once again scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, and they have been made to even look like the heathen. And let me get that precept. My heritage is unto me as a speckled bird, right? That is in the book of Jeremiah. So let's get that. And this is the book of, hold on, let it load. Okay, you are here. So this is the book of Jeremiah 12, verse 9, and it reads, My heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. The birds round about are against her. Come ye assemble, all the beasts of the field come to devour. And what this means is that our people, the Israelites, okay, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, and the scattered Israelites that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, okay, specifically dealing with the scattering right now. They will come in all manner of colors, all manner of nationalities and people groups, names of people and names of nationalities you've never even heard of before, names of tribes of people of various nations that you've never even heard of before. And are going to find out that those people are Israelites as well. So it's not just a matter of, oh, are the Nigerians Israelites or are they Hamites? It's a matter of, you know, our people have been scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. So there is Jake everywhere. But yes, majority of the Nigerians, okay, you have different parts of the world where Israelites are concentrated, and one of the major concentrations outside of Babylon the Great is here in the west coast of Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, because what you find out and what the ISUPK fail to understand, even though they've never even given an actual scriptural or justification or doctrine or justification for why they say, all the Jakes here in Africa, including the west coast of Africa, are Hamites. They just say that, but they don't have any precepts. They don't have any evidence to back it up. Nothing in history or so on and so. Nothing in history. Nothing in the scriptures to use and back it up. They just say it, right? And then you have people that believe that as well. But let's get this, okay? So this is an article from the Council of on Foreign Relations, and normally I wouldn't get all these carnal websites and go to them because now they're going to DNA analysis and so on and so forth, which is what Dr. Brown is harping on. If you are following the recent controversy of Zion, with the debate between Dr. Brown and an elder, second not elder, but basically the Al-Azhar, right? Because he's not a high priest, but let's just say priest. Let's just say Al-Azhar, okay? I'm trying to keep it respectful, but let's just say Al-Azhar. The debate between Dr. Brown and Al-Azhar concerning who are the true Israelites. And of course, Dr. Brown goes into DNA, 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 right? His whole argument is based off DNA. And this is, the same thing that you see here in the Council on Foreign Relations, because when they do a 23andMe DNA test on a lot of the African Americans that you have in Babylon the Great, they find out that a lot of you African Americans, or a lot of the African Americans, have Nigerian heritage or West African heritage, because people forget, and I don't even know how you can forget this. Where do you think the black people that are in America for the most part came from? Not barring or not forgetting that there were, Jake that were in Babylon the Great already before Esau Edom came there, and there was this, and the southern kingdom was already there, right, mixed in with the northern kingdom, because you had a lot of these Native American and Seminole Indians that were actually from the tribes. They were still dark flesh, dark enough to even be called and considered Negroes today. because a lot of the people that are walking around believing themselves to be Negroes are actually Northern Kingdom, right? Ghana and Reuben, in other words, Native American and Seminole Indians. But when we talk about the transatlantic slave trade now, we talk about, the story of carrying our people from the west coast of Africa to Babylon the Great. That was in the millions, okay? And of course, you have approximate numbers of that. Some people will argue that it is something like 20 million, others will say 40 million. The numbers are never, equal. But you know that the number of people that were shipped from the west coast of Africa to Babylon the Great was in the millions, to the point where you even had the slaves at the time outnumbering, the Edomites that were living in that land. Let's continue with this article. Surprisingly, many African Americans hold Nigerian heritage. And this is where I'll stop with the using of basically it's the secular justification, because I could have gone into the book, from Babylon to Timbuktu, to chronicle how our people, after they fled Jerusalem during 70 AD, when, you know, the temple was sacked, right? And I believe it was I forget the exact date. So when did Masada fall? Which was basically the last Israelite stronghold. So okay, I need to quickly look for that in the Google or on Google. Okay, 73 AD. Okay, and this is the siege of Masada. So this is the Wikipedia on the siege of Masada. This is when Masada fell, which was one of the last strongholds for our people, in the Middle East. The siege of Masada was one of the final events in the first Jewish Roman war, and it wasn't a Jewish Roman war. Okay, this is an attempt to link the small hearts to the heritage of our people. This was an Israelite Roman war, and when we talk about Israelites, we're talking about the so-called Negroes, the so-called Latinos, and the so-called Native American Indians. The siege of Masada was one of the final events in the first Jewish Roman War, occurring from 72 to 73 CE, on and around the hilltop in present day Israel. Okay, and that's basically the point we wanted to get. And Masada fell. So that means from 70 AD to 73 AD, you had our people fleeing from the land of Israel and fleeing into the interior of Africa and settling and becoming refugees in the west coast of Africa, because all the Jakes that fled the siege of Jerusalem, that fled the destruction of the Holy Land, the destruction of Jerusalem, the destruction of the temple, the destruction of Masada as well, they all fled into the west coast of Africa, which is why you see that majority, in fact, you could even argue that all of the slaves that were transported in the transatlantic slave trade came from the west coast of Africa, okay, because that was where our people were scattered into. And in order to fulfill the prophecies that are in the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, right, our people had to be shipped from the west coast of Africa all the way to Babylon the Great to serve their captivity. But that does not mean that, the people that were left behind in the west coast of Africa now they're not Israelites, because, well, once again, you see that silence. What reason do you have for them not to be Israelites? There is none. Okay, just because we are here still in Africa, that makes us Hamites. Because we're in Africa, that makes us Hamites, which is actually false. Because what you'll find out is that, or Slavic, what you'll find out is that a lot of the Jakes over in Babylon the Great, they actually came from the west coast of Africa, and still share a lot of connections with us here in Africa as well, because we are the same people. And of course, it begins with the justification, a DNA study. Take that with a grain of salt. The only reason why I'm bringing this out is just to show you the connection that we have, not physically, but spiritually. Okay, by spiritually, a DNA study of a sample gathered from African Americans showed that their genetic origin in Africa accords closely to the documentary historical record, it is estimated that 12.5 million Africans were transported to the Western Hemisphere between 1515 and 1865. The overwhelming majority were landed in the Caribbean and Latin America. Only an estimated 3 to 5% were disembarked in mainland North America. However, the genetic study provides nuances to this historical record. For example, there is little documentary evidence of captives transported from what is now Nigeria to North America. However, the DNA sample of African Americans participating in the survey showed an unexpectedly high percentage of origin from modern day Nigeria. And the reason why they say this is because majority of these slave, you know, I don't know the what term to use, but basically, where they shipped the slaves from was from places like Ghana, places like Senegal, that had different forts and different encampments and buildings set up in order to ship these slaves and to hold them. With Fort Judah and Fort Benjamin, right? And that was where I was even going to go to. Where you had these forts that were set up because Esau, Edom themselves, they knew who they were putting in captivity, right? Which is why you have the term Igbos, which is a loose translation of the term Hebrews, because they knew they were put into captivity. They knew that we were the Israelites. But continuing on, the explanation might be that a significant number of slaves landing on the North American mainland came from the Caribbean rather than directly from Africa. Some may have been trafficked through the English possessions in the Caribbean from Africa to North America. Others may have been enslaved on Caribbean plantations, and only later were they or their children trafficked to North America, if in fact a significant percentage of slaves trafficked to North America were of the second generation in the Western Hemisphere. That could, and this is of course going into some psychobabble. Basically, the point is that this is where the slaves came from. And the same thing is, you still have other articles and other records going into the same thing, because you'll find out again, okay? And these are all things that you can do your own research or you can look up as well. That the major African tribe, okay, the major tribe here in Africa, in which you had these slaves being taken from, was the Igbo tribe, okay, which is of course the tribe that I come from. So naturally, you see, naturally you see that when the host side wants to raise up a JK in Nigeria, it's from the tribes, it's from the tribes basically, Igbo, Yoruba, Ashanti, so on and so forth. Okay, Bantu, right, so on and so forth. And I'm not. But let me just go through this first, because you also have the brethren that are in Babylon the Great as well, who that their bloodline goes directly back to Nigeria. Say they have say they have parents that come from Nigeria, right? Like the brother Yashalam from GMS Watchman from the main camp, right? We also have other brothers as well. The brother okay, I've forgotten his name, Shamawa Allah. I've forgotten what camp he's in. But you have so many jigs that are in different, that are in Babylon the Great, in the camps, IUIC, Great Millstone, Sikari, so on and so forth. That their bloodline goes directly back to Nigeria through their parents, okay? Because their parents are Nigerians. Because once again, Nigerians and West Africans are Israelites. And now this is the another article, an ancestry of African Native Americans. Using government documents, author Angela Walton Raji traced her ancestors to the slaves owned by American Indians. Hold on. Okay. Angela Walton Raji has been researching the African Native American genealogy for nearly 20 years and is the author of the book Black Indian Genealogy Research. And the reason why I opened on this article is just to show you that you still had so many people that are classified as Negroes today, who their line goes back to the Northern Kingdom, right? The Native American and Seminole Indians. And I continue on. Angela Walton Raji has been researching African Native American genealogy for nearly 20 years and is the author of the book Black Indian Genealogy Research African American Ancestors Among the Five Civilized Tribes. She recently presented a series of genealogy workshops at the National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C., in conjunction with the exhibit Indivisible African Native American Lives in the Americas. Walton Raji's ancestors are freedmen, African Americans who were slaves of the five civilized tribes, the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole nations in Indian Territory, which became Oklahoma in 1907. The Cherokee freed their slaves in 1863, and after the Civil War, the other tribes did the same. All but the Chickasaw eventually granted freedmen full citizenship in their tribe. In preparation for Oklahoma statehood, the U.S. Congress created the Dawes Admission, which is going into something else. Let me see. This is what I'm looking for. Okay, so let me just close that. This is going into something else, but it shows you, part of the heritage and the nationality of our people. So let me get this as well. Let's get this as well. What African tribes did the slaves come from, right? Just to get um more understanding on that. Okay, so let's use this one from Africa is woke. Let's just use this one. Okay, so 10 most enslaved African tribes. The majority of African slaves in pre-colonial Africa come from the areas in which the transatlantic slave trade was most active in East and West Africa. Below is a list of some of the 10 African nations where most of the African slaves came from during the transatlantic slave trade. The Mbundu people from Angola. I will go through the title, just the people. Okay, I'm not really go to read all of this preamble. Okay, so I guess this is not in order, but the Mbundu people from Angola, the Yoruba tribe, okay, the Igbos at number three of most. Okay, so this is actually in number. Okay, this is actually in number. This is actually a number. The Mbundu people from Angola were some of the most enslaved. Okay, so that is the first. The second being the Yoruba. The third being the Igbo, right? The fourth being the Bakongo people. The Bakongo people lived along the Atlantic coast of Central Africa. Continuing on, the fifth being the Fon people of Benin and southern Nigeria. So once again, another tribe here in Nigeria, being another tribe once again that exists in Nigeria being taken as slaves. Okay, then the Mende tribe, another West African tribe. And I'm going through this fast, but you have to bear with me for that. The Fulani, the Alboron, and you see that majority of these tribes, the people of Senegal and Gambia, the Wolof people, and you see that majority of these tribes are actually from the west coast of Africa, and a good portion of them are actually from Nigeria. Once again, the West Africans, majority of the people here in West Africa are Israelites of the Southern Kingdom. The Chamba tribe, last but not least, the Chamba tribe, people of the north of northern Nigeria and parts of Cameroon. So once again, west coast of Africa, majority Nigerian people, and it's no surprise because Esau Edom knew what people he was looking for. He knew what people to take into captivity, which are the Israelites according to the Bible. Okay, so now we get some scriptures. Yeah, so talking about that. So back to what I was saying. Back to what I was saying. And now we get some scriptures. And the scriptures I really want to go into, well, If you want to talk about in scripture, how do we know who we are, right? How do we know that we are the Israelites? Well, where is it in the scripture that says that any modern people today are the Israelites? This is how we know that we are the Israelites, as it's written. As it is written, it is the spirit that, the spirit itself bears witness with our spirits, right? Let me get that. I was thinking about that precept. I wanted to say it is the spirit that quickeneth. But basically, this is the book of Romans 8, verse 16. This is the book of Romans 8, verse 16. The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirits that we are the children of the Most High Yahweh Barasham Yahushai. So how do you know you're an Israelite? Well, the way that you know is this word. It resonates with you. Because ultimately we can have all these arguments about genealogy, all these vain babbling about who is Jacob and who isn't, and which group of people are hidden or not. But the main point being is that if you are out there on the highways and byways, if you are doing a camp video, if you are doing a sit down, and somebody approaches you and says, looks at the 12 tribes sign and is like, what's going on here? Can you explain to me what all this means? No matter what the person looks like, whether they look like a Moabite, whether they look like a Asian, right? Whether they look like a European, an African, no matter what they look like, you're going to wonder to yourself, what kind of person is this? Could this be an Israelite? And if they receive this truth, if they receive it and they start to learn, they start to grow in this ministry, nobody is, you're not going to be able to say, oh, well, they are heathen, even though the Spirit is dealing with them. If they start going to the highways and byways, prophesying and holding camp as well, you can't say, oh, well, they are heathen, because what you have to understand again is that the heathen cannot deal with this truth, okay? The heathen cannot deal with this truth. And let me get that precept. And I hope I've already read that Romans 8, verse 16. It is the Spirit, the Spirit bears witness with our spirit that we are the children of the Most High Yahweh Basham Yahushai. But I also want to get another thing as well. Now, Romans 8, verse 17. And if children, then heirs, heirs of the Most High Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh, and joint heirs with Hamashiach, if so be that we suffer with him, that we may be also glorified together. That's right, Our heritage is with the Most High Yahweh and with our Lord Yahweh Shai. So now this is the book of Psalms 147, verse 19. He showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any nation, and as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye Yahweh. The other nations can't receive these truths. The other nations can't get this understanding. Okay, so when you see a man on the highways and byways, it's not a question of, oh, is he a Hamite or not? It's a question of, he is an Israelite 100%. No matter what his appearance is, no matter what location that he finds himself in, okay, because you have to acknowledge the scattering and also acknowledge that the only way in which you will be able to identify our people in this time is through the spirit, through by it's through the spirit, it's through whether the spirit of this world, the spirit of truth, is dealing with them or not. And let's get that precept out. So okay, let's get that precept as well. Okay, the spirit of truth, which the world cannot receive, as our Lord Yahweh Shai said. So this is the book of John 14, verse 16. And I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may abide with you forever, even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it seeth him not, neither knoweth him, but ye know him, for he dwelleth with you, and shall be in you. And the world being the rest of the other nations, the heathen, and even two-thirds of our people. Because right now, another thing that you have to understand, the Most High Yahweh Basham Yahushua is not even dealing with all Israel, not even dealing with the whole house of Israel. So whether a person is an Israelite or not, I shouldn't say that that's like, yeah. But whether a person is an Israelite or not really matters. But the main question you should be asking yourself is that, is this Israelite of the elect? Because that is who the Most High is truly dealing with on this side. That is who this spirit, this word, this truth is for. The elect of the nation of Israel. And no matter what appearance he comes in, okay, no matter what appearance people may come in, you have to understand that that is a result of the scattering. That is a result of our people, going into that Gentile state and coming out like the heathen. But ultimately, the spirit, right, is going to be the one that will determine whether you are whether you are an Israelite or not. So okay, I wanted to get that precept, but now I've lost my train of thought. I've forgotten I've forgotten the precept I wanted to go into. Oh yeah, now I remember. When the prophet Samuel was looking to anoint a new king. Let me see if I can get that precept. When the prophet Samuel was looking to anoint a new king. Let me see. Here it is. So this is the book of First Samuel 16 verse 6. And it came to pass when they were come that he looked on Eliab and said, surely Yahweh's anointed is before him. And this is of course going back to the history, go back in the history. After King Saul, right? After King Saul disobeyed the commandments of the Most High Yahweh in failing to kill Agag the Amalekites, right? Agag, the king of Amalek during that time, and failing to destroy all the castle of Amalek. And what he was, and the justification was that, well, they wanted to use the cattle to give a sacrifice to the Most High as a prayer or offering of thanks for the victory. But Samuel, but the Most High had already given a command, and that was basically that every living thing in Amalek at that time was to be wiped out. Okay, and because Samuel failed to do that, the Most High took his spirit from, sorry, not Samuel, but Saul. Because Saul failed to do that, the Most High Yahweh, Hashem Yahweh took his spirit from Saul and decided to put his spirit on King David. So now Samuel had gone to the house of Jesse, which was David's father, in order to look for the next king of Israel. And David came, and the brethren, right, from the eldest on down, was brought before Samuel. And this is what the Most High said. First Samuel 16, verse 7. But Yahweh said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For Yahweh seeth not as man seeth. For man looketh on the outward appearance, but Yahweh looketh on the heart. Okay? And if you look at this word heart in the Hebrew, the word that will be there will most likely be la'ab, which means mind. As you can clearly see, the word here is la'ab, okay, which means mind. And it reads inner man, mind, will, heart, soul, understanding, inner parts. So the word there is mind. And what he's talking about is that the Most High looks at the inward man, which is the spirit, the soul, okay? Because if you really want to get metaphysical, your mind is your soul, right? Because it's not your brain and the electricity or whatever the scientists say. What your mind is talking about, that's your spirit, that's your soul. So it says that the Most High is looking at the soul, the spirit, and the spirit that is in you, okay, is the spirit of the elect. Is it the spirit of the elect? Is it the spirit of a trusted? Is it the spirit of a prophet, a man of the Lord? Is it the spirit of a helper of the prophets, or one of the prophets of old? Right? That is the question that you know that is how the Most High looks at his people. That's how the Most High looks at us, not by the flesh, the outward appearance, but by the spirit. Okay? Which is why this truth is not a physical thing, right? It's not a physical thing that can be thrown down, that can be destroyed. But it is a spiritual thing that is controlled by the Most High Yahweh Basham Yahshai. So more than looking at the flesh, When I'm looking at, the flesh, what should be focused on is the spirit. What kind of spirit is the person that is preaching this gospel coming in? Is it coming in the 100% truth, the spirit of the Most High, Yahweh Basham Yahushua, or is it going off in some wayward spirits? Because at, on this side, it does not matter if you are an Israelite or not. Okay, of course it does matter, but we're talking about in the spirit now. You see, what matters most is if you are if you are of the elect, is if you are of the Israel of the Most High. However, Hashem, you are right there of the elect. The Spirit is dealing with you as an Israelite in order to receive these truths. So with that, I'll end the video right there. All praise His honor and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahweh Shai, Ba'asham Rakak, Badash, pour about Papal and through His praise. I hope you are coming, you are edified. Shalom.